Today we will look at the ASME standard for title blocks, which also includes the ASME standard for what size your sheet is. Notice that the title of the standard here says decimal inch drawing sheet size and format, which means title block. There is also an ASME standard for metric sheets, of course, and most of the world uses metric dimensions and metric sheets. We will just focus on the decimal inch sizes, which is what companies in the US tend to use, and so we'll just stay with that one standard. Under this system, where you're using decimal inch sheets, the sheet sizes are all multiples of 8.5 by 11. And that's the size of paper that you get in your printer, let's say, or your photocopier. Standard letter size paper. If you took two sheets of those sheets of paper and put them side by side, how big would the area be? You'd have 11 by 17. That little size, 8.5 by 11, is known as A size. The size that is two sheets stuck together is known as B size. If you stuck four of these together, you'd wind up with 17 by 22, and that's called C size, and so on and so forth. So you can see that the system is the smallest size is A, and then bigger sheet sizes have higher letters in the alphabet. And these are the standard sizes. In addition, the format of the sheet is standardized. In other words, that's a fancy way of saying every sheet has a title block that is a standard size and shape. And if you look at this picture out of the ASME standard, you can see that no matter what size piece of paper you have, the title block is always a rectangle of lines and spaces down in the lower right corner of the sheet. Your title block, no matter what size sheet you're using, your title block has to have two blocks on it. At the top of the sheet, in the upper right corner, there must be a revision block, and that lists revisions, changes that were made to the drawing. And in the lower corner is the title block. And the size and shape of both of those blocks are controlled by this ASME standard. The dimensions and what has to go in it are standardized. However, there are weasel words in here, as I like to call them. In the ASME standard, it says these dimensions are recommended and they may be varied to accommodate the user's requirements. Also, implied in that is the idea that you do not have to make them not only the same size and shape, but you don't have to include everything. And a prime example is this CAGE code. The CAGE code stands for, what does that stand for? Commercial and Government Entity. This is a number that you have to put on your drawing if you are making a drawing for a U.S. government agency, Department of Defense or any other agency. If you're just working in a commercial setting where you're not working with government agencies, you can omit that CAGE code box. And so that's what we've done, that's what I've done with our standard class title block. I've modified it a little bit as they allow us to do and omitted the CAGE code. And let me say here, we are going to pretend that this class is an office that you work for. And like every office, we have an office standard. Our employers in the local area tell us they really want you to be comfortable with adapting to whatever your boss's standard is. So our standard for this office, for this class, is going to look like this. This is just the right half of our B size sheet. There'd be the rest of the frame over here, of course. So this is our office standard for this class. It primarily has everything that, let me back up here, it has everything that ASME says we have to have except for the cage code, and I've modified the dimensions a little bit to make up for that. So let's go through the things that a standard title block must have in it. Company title blocks will have someplace on their title block will be information like we have here on our office standard, and part of that is what drawing standard are you following? And I have written here this drawing adheres to ASME Y14.5-2018, which is the most current version of the ASME dimensioning standard. This, in effect, tells the reader what language your drawing is written in. And I don't mean to imply that we're using words, because mostly we're using numbers and symbols. But it's like saying, what rule book should you consult? If you don't know how to interpret a certain thing, here's the rule book that you consult. Then, as we'll see later on, ASME allows us to use dimensions that are either in inches or metric, and so you have to tell your reader which system you are using in your drawing. And if it is an inch drawing, which most of ours are, we will write, unless otherwise specified, dimensions are in inches. That also means that when you put dimensions on your parts, you do not put on inch marks, because you already told them here, when you see a number, that number means inches. Then, a big idea in mechanical drafting is this: there are no perfect parts. And I hate to break that to you. If you didn't know it before, you will know it by the time we are done with this class. You can have really precise parts with really good tolerances and smooth machine surfaces, but it is impossible to make a perfect part. And so, the ASME standard says we must specify how much variation we can tolerate. We must include a tolerance on every dimension. In fact, when we look at our rules, dimensioning rules, we'll see rule number 1 is every dimension shall have a tolerance. You can put a tolerance straight on the dimension itself, or you can have a note in the title block, as we have here, that says, unless otherwise specified, when you see a dimension, here is the tolerance that applies to it. We always use a standard scale, and as we go along making drawings, I'm going to have videos where I'll show you in AutoCAD how we set the scale and how we do the viewport and all that kind of stuff. So don't worry about that. But just for now, have it in your mind that when you set a scale in your viewport, you want to have a standard scale, and you have to have it written on your sheet. Now, that does not mean that your machinist is supposed to get a machinist scale and measure the stuff on your drawing. They're not supposed to. But you are supposed to give them a hint what scale you drew it to. Going along with that, you also are required to tell them what size of sheet is this. And so those two kind of go together. If you have drawn your drawing on a B-size sheet, and maybe it's at a scale of 1:1, but then somebody shrinks it down in a photocopier and squishes it onto an A-size sheet, and it's now more like a half-size scale, well, you want your machinist to be able to see what size it was originally drawn on. So they'll know, oh, don't count on this being whatever. So anyway, we always tell them the sheet size and the scale. we always tell them the revision level of this part. And for this term, we'll always make brand new parts and they'll always be a revision level of 0. But when you are working in a job, you will often be revising your drawings. You'll make some design change to your part. Maybe you'll make the holes bigger. Maybe you'll have to do a correction. You should have said they were 1.5 apart, but you accidentally wrote 2 inches apart. Whatever. You'll be revising stuff all the time. So you always have to tell your shop people what revision this drawing is. And you want to tell them how many sheets are in your sheet set. So imagine that you have a set of sheets. You have 5 drawings in your set. You're drawing some kind of, like, let's say I'm drawing a conveyor, and I've got 5 sheets of drawings in my conveyor set. And let's say your welder gets 4 drawings, and they go, great, now I'll start building. If you have not told them that they should have 5 sheets, they won't realize that something is missing, and they might build it wrong. So we always tell them what sheet this is out of how many total sheets they should have. You put your name in the title block. Usually it's last name, or maybe it's initials. What you need to remember is that you're signing your name here, and your drawing might be with your company for years to come. So you want to be proud of the work you do. Anything worth doing is worth doing well, and you want to make your drawing the very highest standard professional quality you can. So we'll have a standard title block. I've already set, I've already set this up for you, so you'll have a standard title block at the top of your Moodle course, and I'll show you where to find that probably next time. You'll want to download that to your own computer and do a save as and save it with your name and maybe change stuff here, put your name in there. And every time you start a new drawing, new assignment, you can just open this title block, do a save as again, and you'll have all the line weights and line types and dimension styles and everything you need to start going. We're not using what you call AutoCAD templates. We're just using this good old drawing, which is our title block. So next time we'll start looking at how to draw stuff.